Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to a special edition of the Confused Breakfast Podcast. Normally, we choose a classic movie from the 80s, 90s, or early 2000s and dissect it with a modern eye to see if it still moves us the way it did as kids, but not today. On this episode, we are going to discuss multiple amazing movies instead of just one. We think you're going to love it, so sit back and enjoy today's episode, Top 5 Movie Soundtracks.
Woo! Confused Breakfast!
Everybody knows that Mortal Kombat will not be on my list because I think it's top worst soundtrack.
Mike is upset every time he has to push that button.
Yeah,
I am.
We have a new one, right?
I know. Sorry, I don't even know if it's there anymore. I don't even know what happened. Well, we are obviously pretty excited about today's episode, and I'll explain to you why we are doing this shortly. But first, it's time to introduce the team. My name is Mike Schulte, and joining me, as always, two dudes that love using the acronym OST when talking about soundtracks. Shaun Pryor and AJ Vince, how the heck are you?
I don't know what that means.
Original soundtrack.
Over.
I think.
Over the pants hand job.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what it stands for.
Every time I search for a soundtrack on Spotify, you gotta you have to put that for some reason, or you have to put Quentin Tarantino's Jackie Brown. You know, it's
dumb.
It's really.
I was being
infuriating.
facetious. It's dumb.
Yeah, no, it sucks.
You don't actually like using that, but you do.
I mean, I have to. I'm professional.
Did they release an OST for this? Or
Oh, you don't. That stands for original.
I'm gonna see if I can get it on vinyl.
Hey, do you have the OST on LP?
Do you STP? What?
Oh, the
You down?
STP.
Are you guys down with OPP or?
No, Jesus. So here's what we're doing today. Top 5 lists and ranking movies is such a cool way to talk about a lot of movies at once and provide some great conversations. Back in 2022, Shaun had the... Back in 2022?
Yeah, we're here.
How about 2021?
Earlier.
What year is it? Shaun had the idea to give a little sneak peek into our Patreon-only audio that our Patreon members get to listen to. So we did a top 5 summer movies. It's a total hit. Followed that up with top 5 fall movies. Mm-hmm. Then we did top 5 rom-coms in January and top 5 movies from 1985 back in April. People seem to absolutely love these top 5 lists, so we're going to continue down that path today with our top 5 movie soundtracks. Before we dive in, don't forget your tasks for being a Confused Breakfast lover. Leave us a 5-star review on your podcast platform of choice. Sign up for our Patreon to directly support the show. Get tons of amazing perks, including voting on upcoming episodes and weekly bonus audio like this, kind of loose form stuff. Patreon.com/ConfusedBreakfast. Subscribe. Check us out on YouTube. Buy some merch. Like us on social media. Let us know if you want to come to Swisher, Iowa on Thursday, September 29th. See a live taping of this podcast. We're doing Roadhouse, so you know it's going to be outrageous.
Obviously, you'll pay for the whole seat, but you'll only need the edge.
Yeah.
Come on down.
You only need the edge for at least 5 minutes because you're going to want to stand the entire time like us. So.
Yeah.
Yes. And you're going to want to buy those immediately because there's only a limited space and they are filling up. By the time you hear this, it might even be sold out. But check it out, confusedbreakfast.com, all the links you need, and tell a friend. Please do that. That's all we're asking. All right, let's jump in.
Let's do it.
Our topic today, top 5 movie soundtracks. We always like to set the ground rules. The rules generally of our top 5 lists are that you cannot use a movie that we've already talked about in our past 90-something episodes.
Yeah.
Which is tough because, ready for this list? I think pretty much all of these soundtracks would be on our list if we didn't have that rule. Here we go.
Exhibit A.
Yeah.
Wedding Singer.
Yeah.
Breakfast Club, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, Dazed and Confused, Rad. Rad would be probably my number one.
It was on my list.
It would probably be my number one.
Yeah.
Cool. I love the Cool Running soundtrack. 50 First Dates.
Actually a pretty good one. It was pretty.
I was trying.
I like ska.
It's actually
It's actually a really good soundtrack. It's just a little too much ska.
Yeah.
Even some would say the Batman, the OG Batman soundtrack with the Prince songs
Sure.
on it.
Yeah.
Big Lebowski, clearly, and even Wayne's World. I thought that was an incredible soundtrack. So we cannot just want to. If you're like, why didn't they say Dazed Confused? Because that's a rule.
Yeah, we can't.
It's
do
already
that.
our number one. We all think it's the fucking best ever.
Yeah.
So we're trying to get some new stuff. And also, we're doing songs in the movie and or on the soundtrack.
Yes.
These are physical, actual songs. We're not doing scores. That's going to be a completely separate thing, I think, right?
Yeah.
Because that's a whole nother world. So
Yeah.
these are songs you can actually find on the soundtrack or that are played in the movie.
Right.
Are we in agreement
If
on
you
that?
heard it while watching the movie, it will be talked about if it's on the soundtrack but not in the movie, or if it's in the movie, but not on the soundtrack for some weird reason.
Yeah.
It will be talked about.
So we're in agreement here.
Yes.
Totes.
Okay, so honorable mentions. You got any? I actually got a lot.
I got a few.
Because I mean, clearly we are fans of music here at this podcast, and I mean that's part of the reason why I love movies so much is the musical correlation. But Shaun, what do you got for honorable mentions, man?
I'm gonna go with a movie that we probably will cover in the future. I'm gonna say definitely, probably. We will cover Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
Yep, that's a good one.
That Jackson Browne song is just legendary. Do you want to go round robin, or you want me to just spout them up?
Just spout them up.
I'm gonna go Drive as well. I know that's a love
that was
for
on mine.
all of us.
But
yeah.
I'm gonna say that the reason that's not on my list is because it's too late.
Right.
Like it's 2011 was Drive. And
it's true.
That's not what we're doing here.
It's a beautiful thing to be introduced to music, and I've never heard any of those songs on that soundtrack in my entire life until I saw that movie. And that's what I think is beautiful about movies in general, or media, TV, is I know people are saying the Kate Bush song from Stranger Things, you haven't heard that song?
Oh my
What
God.
is your deal?
People are gatekeeping Metallica right now too. They're I knew about Metallica. It's who cares?
Yeah.
Well, some people didn't, and it's a beautiful thing that they discovered it off of this, because it's amazing. That's all I got for now.
Let me add one more to the same thought as Drive, The Guest.
Oh yeah.
The Guest, it was a very similar thing to me. I never heard any of those songs and fell instantly in love with all of them. But again, that was 2014, so it cannot be on our list. It's a little too old.
Fall album for me.
Oh, good Lord.
Sisters of Mercy.
That opening scene with the pumpkin.
Yes.
Come on, man. AJ, what do you got, man?
Hey,
only 3 months till Halloween, by the way.
I had obviously I had Wedding Singer was on there. I had Rad was on there. Drive was on there. Reservoir Dogs, actually, which I decided to leave off. I'm sure we'll get there.
I think we'll talk a little bit about Reservoir Dogs next week.
Maybe we'll even talk a little bit about that. Who knows? But the other one that we haven't mentioned yet for my honorables, Back to the Future.
Is that? I almost view that more as a score. Almost. I mean,
but I think of I
know
Power of Love,
Johnny Be Good.
You know,
you're right.
Booby Lewis
Damn.
and the Pubes. You know, you gotta love those guys. So
Marvin Berry,
Marvin Berry, your cousin. It's
I cannot. But in case you haven't heard, October 26th is when we will be finally reviewing Back to the Future, the original movie, on the day that it actually happened. It's going to be a 10-hour episode.
Yeah. I mean,
just get used to it.
AJ's got to be happy because we're skipping one Halloween movie probably for that month. And going straight to fucking.
It's going to be a great time.
We're going to have a great time.
It's going to be a great time.
You got any other honorables?
I think that's all for my honorables.
I got a couple. American Graffiti for me is
yeah.
one of the best soundtracks of all time. That late 50s, early 60s songs of just rock around the clock. That movie. Have you ever seen that movie before, Shaun?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's basically Dazed and Confused, but 20 years earlier.
100%.
The single soundtrack, which, of course, the quintessential grunge era album of all time. Purple Rain, in my opinion, is potentially the greatest soundtrack of all time. However, I want variety in my soundtrack.
Okay, yeah.
So, I left it off specifically because that's just an album to me that happened to coincide with a movie.
Right.
Sure.
But I mean, I think that's one of the best albums ever, and it's about a movie. So
I don't know if we're ever going to cover Purple Rain, but I'm interested to find out if he wrote those songs before the movie or he wrote the songs for the movie. I don't know.
I'd love to know that, man. Two more, High Fidelity, obviously. That's an incredible collection and talk of music in the movie.
Yeah, definitely.
And for me, Friday Night Lights. That is essentially almost more of a score to me because it's explosions in the sky, but they're songs. It's I don't know, whatever. So that's our honorables. Before we start our number 5, let's talk about our amazing sponsor, Felix Gray. This company makes affordable and incredibly stylish glasses that filter out the harmful blue light that is all around us from our computers, phones, and TVs. So I wanted to learn. I'm spouting off this blue light's dangerous for you. And I was like, I don't actually know what does this do? So I did some research.
It'll make you go blind?
It will, but I wanted to know why. So each color in the spectrum apparently has different wavelengths and energy levels, which is weird because we can't see these colors and they vibrate at different. It's like music; they vibrate at different frequencies. Blue light has the shortest wavelength, thus giving it the highest energy. It's just moving the fastest, which is essentially what research is showing that it has a direct link between eye damage and the blue light wavelengths, which are 415 to 455 nanometers is the frequency of blue light.
Yeah.
Most of the light from
I knew that,
LEDs, smartphones, TVs, and tablets has the same wavelength there, which is why that's apparently so harmful. They're saying it's the most disruptive of all light spectrums.
And disrespectful, to be honest.
It's a really,
Yeah, they're just really rude.
It's linked to bad sleep, cancer, and can cause issues with your mental health. So don't just trust us. Read up on it. There's a lot of information out there, but that's where Felix Gray is so important. They're 15 times more effective than all other blue light glasses at filtering this blue light. Quality's unbelievable, and you'll love all the options for different styles and colors. You can even decide between prescription, non-prescription, and readers. Obviously, blue light exposure is not going to go away. It's just going up and up and up. So we love them. We all have at least a couple pairs. Go check them out. FelixGrayGlasses.com/confused. That's FelixGray glasses.com/confused. Free shipping, free returns, free exchanges.
See the future.
What was the last one you said? You had a really good one.
Yeah, you had a good one.
It was in the last couple episodes.
Don't be a nerd. Look for the bird.
Call us, seriously.
Yeah,
that's your slogan.
We got you, man. Come on.
Be a nerd, look for the bird, or don't be a nerd.
That's right.
Give me them Wild Thing
Don't be a
custom
fool.
glasses.
Block the blue. I don't know. That was
Well, let's get
We're
into our
trying.
top 5, AJ. Who wants to start this party off?
I'll
think
do it.
Sean. I think Sean.
Let's go.
Get us
Sean,
your
y'all
number 5.
deal.
What
I'm
do you
gonna
got,
start. I'm gonna start a groovy, and concerning next week's episode, this filmmaker has maybe every single one of his movies is one of the greatest soundtracks of all time. This one is probably my favorite, I gotta say, in Jackie Brown.
Oh.
Jackie Brown is just. Have you guys seen Jackie Brown?
I've not.
Okay.
Whoa.
Maybe I have. We don't know.
We'll find out because we'll cover that. Really, you got starting off is across 110th Street by Bobby Womack.
Oh God.
And it kind of starts off with Pam Grier in frame, just like The Graduate, kind of floating on this the airport elevator escalator walk along
Horizontal
things.
escalator.
Yeah, the moving sidewalk.
That's it. And so that, and you got Strawberry Letter 23 by the Brothers Johnson. I also love Tennessee Stud, the live version by Johnny Cash. Is just especially a scene with Samuel L. Jackson in that movie. He's kind of stalking his prey while that song is going on, and it's just kind of perfect. I mean, a lot of there's some rap songs in it, from a kid group that kind of pops for one Max Cherry character, and it's along with one of the greatest relationships that I've ever seen on screen with Max Cherry, Robert Forster, and Pam Grier in this movie. They kind of bond with music. Like she shows him a piece of music, and he's it makes him fall more in love with her. And through this music, he can kind of imagine her in his mind and stuff like that. And I really like that about it. So yeah, Jackie Brown, I love it.
A beautiful choice. Such an underrated movie, in my opinion, as far
I
as
do
Quentin
too.
Tarantino is.
Yeah.
A lot of people watched Pulp Fiction and they're like, yeah,
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
Jackie Brown came out. They're like, what the fuck is this?
What is going on?
So it's one of those movies you got to go back and watch. I feel.
Yeah, it's actually I think it's my favorite Tarantino.
Maybe we'll talk about that next
Oh
week.
my goodness.
AJ, what's your number 5, brother?
My number 5 is a movie called Into the Wild.
Oh
yeah.
I feel like maybe I've mentioned this before, but the entire soundtrack is basically it was written and performed by Eddie Vedder. For the majority of it, I'm pretty sure it was all him.
The Ved himself.
The Ved
man.
himself.
Yeah.
Ed the Ved.
That's what they call him.
That's what they call. That's what his. Yeah, that's his pseudo stage name.
Yeah.
And so, but
Pseudo,
yeah,
great band.
Pseudo, great band. Check
Yeah.
them out. But Into the Wild is about Alex Super. I can never remember his name. Supertramp. Alexander Supertramp, I think, is what he uses his name as or whatever. But basically, it's about a guy who gives up all of his worldly possessions, his car, going to college, says goodbye to his family, and just basically packs a bag, no money, gets on the road, and he hitchhikes, and he wants to basically end up in Alaska.
So he goes into the wild.
And so he quite literally goes into the wild.
Sweet.
And Eddie Vedder is there playing his
Just
guitar and
he's
singing
he's
next
with
to
him?
the whole time.
Cool.
So he's just like, here goes Alex. Oh, he goes away.
Or is
That's
it Christopher McCandless?
Christopher McCandless, but his like
He changes his name in the movie.
yeah, like
okay.
he has like his writer's name. What's his pen name?
Got you.
That it's like Alexander Supertramp or something like that. I'm sorry if I'm butchering it,
That
guys. I
sounds-
haven't seen the movie in a little while.
Neither have I. Yeah.
But it's a great soundtrack.
Yeah.
I think he really does do
remember
a
that.
really great job. There's something about his guitar tone in these songs that is, it like draws me in and is so fitting for the time of the movie because I believe it's based in like late 80s, early 90s.
Right.
And so it's just, it fits so perfectly to the timing of the movie that I don't know how to explain it,
Yeah, I
I
hadn't
guess.
thought about that. Yeah, Eddie Vedder being obviously a staple of the 90s. Yeah.
Exactly. And like there's something about the way he writes these songs and puts them together, and there are some that are very, very there's even some like Simon Garfunkel kind of influence that kind of shines through in this music. It's so great, man. Like good soundtrack to just pull up, listen to, let it play all the way through. It's a really, really good one.
I think that you could put Yellow Ledbetter like with any like sort of media and like say there's like a puppy that's like playing with like a butterfly or something like that. I would cry.
Yeah.
I think if he could just like had the whole entire soundtrack be Yellow Ledbetter,
Just Yellow Ledbetter.
it would have been just as good of a movie.
At different like BPMs.
Yeah.
Like
Yes.
Hey, I'm not ashamed to admit I've cried to Yellow Ledbetter as a 17-year-old
I
child.
listened to Yellow Ledbetter as I was leaving my last day of high school, and I cried. I'm like, why am I crying? I want to be out of this
day of
place.
my life.
this is the best.
It's power of Eddie Vedder, man.
Power of
He
Eddie.
doesn't even fucking word. There are not even words to that fucking song. You're like, I love it. I fucking love it.
Darth Vader. So.
Oh, right.
All right, my number. What?
Darth Vader, come on.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Come on, guys. It's a fun joke.
This is a fun time.
We're having fun, guys. Come on.
It's a good time.
My number 5. I think we've talked about it quite a bit. Is Vanilla Sky.
Yeah.
I just absolutely love that movie. I was at such a pivotal point in my life the first time I saw that movie. That is just like the combination of the storytelling and the music in that movie just exploded my brain and my soul of how incredibly meshed together that soundtrack was with the movie. Who directed that?
I think that was Cameron Crowe.
Yes, I believe maybe. Yeah, I think you're right.
But
certain. If that's who it is, I remember reading that he clearly has a love for music and fought hard for some of these songs to be in it. But like the Radiohead, everything in its right place scene, Peter Gabriel, Salisbury Hill. There's a song at the very end called "Ladies and Gentlemen, We Are Floating in Space" by Spiritualized. If you were to look that up, you go, oh, that song. But most importantly for me is the Sigur Rós stuff. Is I had never heard of Sigur Rós. They're the Icelandic band that like sings in their made up language and stuff. But there's multiple songs, and most importantly, the song that was at the end there was called the Nothing Song. And he loved it so much. All there was this live bootleg version of it. They had never even studio recorded it, and he fought so hard just to get that live bootleg recording to put it in this movie because there wasn't a studio version of it.
Wow.
And it fits so fucking perfectly. Nancy Wilson, Elevator Beats, that guitar song when he's riding up in the elevator. It's literally the definition of like making a movie better with a soundtrack. So yeah, Vanilla Sky for me is number 5.
I dig, man. I think also Cameron Crowe directed Singles.
Yes, correct. So there you go. Weird. 2 Cameron Crowes.
He really likes music in his movies, I guess.
But we also have an executive producer today. Josh Miller's with us. He's going to give us his top 5 as we go too. So Josh says for number 5, I don't know if this counts as one, but if you guys make the rules, and I hope he says, but you guys make the rules, and I hope that there is a 2/3 majority. He is proposing Chef Aid, the South Park album. And now, hold on a second. Listen, because he says for a compilation, it's hard to beat the list of artists that's on it, and then the original South Park stuff with the big characters from the early era of South Park. These are the artists that were on that Chef Aid album: Perry Farrell, Rick James, Ween, Tom Morello, Master P, P. Diddy, Elton John, Meatloaf, Primus, and Ozzy Osbourne.
Damn.
Some of the people that made songs with the people of South Park.
Of all the movies we talk about today, that might be the most eclectic of
Insane.
artists on one album.
100%, man.
Yeah.
So that's Josh's number 5.
I
think
it.
we'll just allow it. I mean, we
accept.
already read it, so we're allowed.
Yeah.
Except.
You're there now.
Yeah.
You're there now, Josh. All right, what do you got for 4, Shaun?
Okay, I got one of my idols, one of my favorite filmmakers, and I know he's kind of controversial and iffy with some people. But with music and movies, he's one of my biggest influences, and Rob Zombie is that man. And I think his best film, The Devil's Rejects.
Oh.
The soundtrack is just incredible, just like 70s artists, a lot of like 70s pop hits and 70s just like kind of rock and roll, and then 70s like country. And a lot of that like really pulled me in. So we start off like the movie with Midnight Rider as like they're escaping from a shootout. I mean, you can't get any better than that. That's like the title sequence, like where all the, the credits and everything start to roll. Shambhala, Three Dog Night. We got Brave Awakening by Terry Reid. This is where I discovered Terry Reid. This is like what's important, what we talk about like while watching movies or a show and discovering an artist. Like, what is that song?
Yep.
And his song To Be Treated Right, I think, is in this album. He's got 3 songs by Terry Reid. And for the longest time, I could not find a single lick of him on the internet at all. Like maybe you could find like a bootleg that was on YouTube or something like that, or you like went to the website when Devil's Rejects came out and it was like a little snippet of the song.
Right.
But that's all you could get. And then now finally Terry Reid is kind of on Spotify and I think probably Apple Pod or music and everything.
Apple Pod.
Apple Pods.
Apple Pods.
So that's really great for me. Like that's really what I love about this topic is just discovery of new music that you've never heard. I Can't Quit You Baby by Otis Rush, Funk 49, James Gang. It's filled with these 70s hits and accompanied by horrible people and the violent acts they do to people.
It seems kind of a weird combo, but
No.
maybe that's why it works so much.
Yeah. I mean, you could argue Tarantino does the same thing.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
I think we'll get there.
What do you got for a 4-age?
My number 4 is a little bit of a different route from Shaun's. I'm going to go with Friday.
Oh, nice.
The movie Friday.
Hell yeah.
Great fucking choice.
Dude, and it's got such great music. Like when I finally like kind of saw it and everything, my brothers listened to like some rap like Bone Thugs and Harmony, Coolio, and Tupac, and like some stuff like that. And then like we got into this, and a lot of that soundtrack is just that very West Coast like style. Dre and like Snoop,
Ice Cube,
obviously, but yeah, you're just like, the sounds, it's like absolutely the spot on like West Coast kind of sine wave kind of, that kind.
That West Coast sound.
Yeah, it's so distinctive for the like hip hop and like rap and but one song in particular is Dr. Dre's "Keep Their Head Ringing." Keep Their Heads Ringing. We used to just sing like the hook like all the time, just randomly, just ding ding dong, ring ding 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 dong, ring ding dong.
You're riding your bike.
Yeah. You're just like, yeah. I have no idea what I'm talking
gangsta.
about.
I want to go to Compton someday.
Yeah. I'm just this kid from Iowa. Like, what?
I relate to these beats.
Yeah.
I relate to this hot track, Fire.
This hot track, Fire. Boy, he is spitting. Spitting.
He is spitting. He's spitting flames.
Hot flames.
Anyway, go to the riding up to get a slushie. I just sometimes the mental images that I get of us when these start, like I just watch an age, I just keep your hands ringing.
Just trying my damnedest to get up the hill on my Huffy Diesel bike with ring ding dong.
Yeah, I know how hard it is, Dr. Dre.
Yeah, I'm struggling up this hill. No, that's what it is, though, man. And it was such a obviously it's music that is complete opposite of what you think a little white kid from Iowa would be listening to, but I just loved it. It was
that
such
movie was a cultural thing, though. It really was
massive, and I think we will be covering that one day.
Yes. There's one song. Remember the Rose Royce song? I wanna get next to you. That song from that. That song is so perfect in that movie.
I know. Oh man, God, I think there's even a version. I think I had saw that there was a version of Heard It Through the Grapevines or whatnot, something like that on it, and which I just saw it on the album while looking it up this time around, but I didn't listen to it. Yeah.
Dude, I'm in the same vein as you for number 4. My number 4 is 8 Mile.
Nice.
But not Mom Spaghetti, not like all the modern music that was written for the movie.
Yeah.
They released a soundtrack called 8 Mile, and it had Lose Yourself on it, and it had all this modern music. But then they released a secondary soundtrack that was called More Music from the 8 Mile soundtrack, and it was all the songs from the movie, which was same era. So Friday was like 95, 96, and I believe that 8 Mile took place in 95, 96. So you had Mobb Deep, Notorious B.I.G., Wu-Tang Clan, Method Man, Junior Mafia. This was like all the lesser known rap artists from that day. It wasn't the Dr. Dre and the Snoop. It was like Wu-Tang, Method Man, all that stuff. And I got completely turned on to these artists that I had never listened to. And this is like the early 2000s when I'm first hearing these songs. Like, holy Mobb Deep? What the fuck is
dude,
it?
that Mobb Deep song is so good.
That if you ever want to pick a soundtrack out and just hit some old school rap and go from front to back, that is a great introduction to some artists that maybe you've never heard of. But man, I just absolutely love that era of hip hop now that the movie has like reintroduced me to that, and I think it's a huge part of the vibes for that movie too. That's a great movie. If you've never seen 8 Mile, like it's fucking great.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Hell yeah, dude.
Well, let's see what Josh Miller has for his number 4. He said, I'm putting this one at 4 because while it's a good album, it's not life-changing. At the time, it had one of my favorite songs then, and it's still up there today, the Lost Highway soundtrack.
Oh, hell yeah, dude.
When I read this, I went, no! So he says it was produced by Trent Reznor, and at the time, it was the only way you could get the perfect drug. That song was so fucking great by 9 Inch Nails. I really owe it to myself to give it another listen. It's been far too long. With the entirety of iTunes at my disposal, it's really easy for things like this to end up falling off the table. I never saw the movie. Did you ever see Lost Highway?
I love them. I love that movie.
I know I need to see it, but I knew the soundtrack. Well, it had Perfect Drug by 9 Inch Nails, some Smashing Pumpkins, Marilyn Manson. I Put a Spell on You cover on there, some Rammstein. Like it was a pretty fucking cool album.
Damn. Okay.
And then it reminded me of. Do you remember the Spawn soundtrack?
No.
The Spawn.
Dude, do you remember that movie though? Like, I don't think that was a very good movie, was it?
It wasn't horribly well received. I mean,
What's
John Leguizamo.
What's the IMDb on there?
I'll look it up for you guys.
Well, same thing. I never saw that movie, but I definitely had that soundtrack, and he reminded me of it when I heard Lost Highway. Kind of that weird it was like collaborations between DJs and like new metal bands. And so there was Korn, Stabbing Westward, Incubus, Prodigy. That's why I was texting you guys about Prodigy the other day. I went down a Prodigy wormhole. Crystal Method. Like there were these weird collaborations. A pretty interesting soundtrack for sure back then.
Oh. Josh Miller.
That's Josh Miller.
Josh Miller. You and I, man. All right. We
Josh Miller will be in attendance. He's coming from out of state to see us at Cedar Ridge.
We're going to talk about some David Lynch. We're going to talk about some all that. Okay. Me and you, man. Me and you.
Spawn's a 5.2 on IMDb, by the way.
That's not great. Before we get back to the movies, I want to give a quick shout out to our sponsor, Cedar Ridge Distillery. We know that they're amazing and likely the best-selling whiskey distiller in the world, and you do too, especially if you bought a bottle. But here's what's crazy. I just saw an article that they shared. Did you guys see this?
No.
It's from GoBourbon.com. This is what they wrote. They wrote the article, and they pointed out this insane fact that Cedar Ridge is the only craft distillery in America to be a state's #1 overall best-selling whiskey. This is the quote. In 49 states, a major distillery produces the #1 best-selling bourbon in the state. In many cases, that is Jim Beam, Maker's Mark, or Jack Daniels. But that's not the case in Iowa, where Cedar Ridge has been the #1 for 2 straight years, outselling the nearest major distillery competitor by some 35%.
Wow.
So, like, you heard it here first. Cedar Ridge, their whiskey is the absolute best in the world. It's the best in Iowa.
Yep.
Just wait till it keeps moving into your state. It's happening here. It's going to happen in your state soon. And you can get on the ground floor for only $500. You can send us, and we'll make you an official Cedar Ridge. We won't do that. What you need to do, though, is stop out to a liquor store near you, pick some up. If your store doesn't have it, you can order a bottle directly online at cedarridgewhiskey.com. Stop by their website, add them on social media, go check them out in person in Swisher, Iowa. Maybe come see us.
Please.
That's where our thing's going to be.
Do
We're going
it.
to do a live podcast at Cedar Ridge.
It's gonna be great, man.
They'll make you delicious beverages with their bourbons.
Yeah.
Not
they will.
only is it delicious bourbons, they are delicious people and very, very accommodating, and
Indeed.
they're very nice.
So when you buy it or when you stop out there, tell them Confused Breakfast sent you. Grab a bottle. Send us your photos. Send us your reviews. Trust us. It's the best.
Yep.
Okay, number
Cedar
3.
Ridge Whiskey.
Oh, sorry.
.com.
Hold on. Okay, go ahead.
CedarRidgeWhiskey.com.
CedarRidgeWhiskey.com.
Sean, what's your number 3?
Goodfellas.
Whoa.
Martin Scorsese, my man. Yes.
The scores.
The scores.
The scores. The Scorsese.
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 Rags to Riches by Tony Bennett. Sincerely by the Moonglows.
No one knows who sang that song.
But no, it's
knows.
it's just these like early to mid to late 50s, early 60s kind of like pop hits throughout the entire film. Again, with brutal violence involved with most of them. But you got like the Copacabana scene.
Oh God.
The oneer going through the one take, the famous one take that everyone refers to as oneers, with and then he kissed me. But I think by the Shangri-Las, I'm gonna get ripped apart.
It's cool. It's fun.
But it's just the perfect kind of like, oh yeah, Henry found a love, and they're getting together, and it's a perfect song. He's walking through, knowing everybody, and he's like, "What do? You don't look like you're in construction. Your hands don't feel
That
like
is
you're in
a
construction."
Really fucking cool scene.
But you got that, and you got "Sunshine of Your Love" by Cream, and the when they're walking through, or they're showing all of the victims being like, or everyone taken to jail and everything like that. That in that movie as well, when they're all finding like the dead bodies and everyone's being taken to jail for like the heist that they pulled. Layla is playing.
Isn't that like the outro of Layla, like the
Yes.
end part of it?
Yeah,
that doesn't even seem like the same song.
Yeah. It's just
That is a pretty cool.
That piano,
Yes, it is. It's just impeccable with like what he does, and like obviously he's one of those guys up there with Tarantino and like Paul Thomas Anderson, who just have like the greatest soundtracks in all of their movies. But yeah, so Goodfellas.
Goodfellas number 3. AJ, what you got, man?
Glad we got through that.
What
do you mean?
I don't know what you're talking about. I think this is a weird one because it reminds me of a review we had, like I think it was last week. We were like, I really love this movie. I can't remember anything from it, but I do really like it, and that's Empire Records.
Dude, I'm really glad you said that.
I love this soundtrack because there's so much amazing 90s music in this that it glosses through it so fast. Like it just speeds through this music. Like it's very rare that there's not some sort of music being played in this movie because it's based in a record store, like a music store. And it is a hangout movie to a degree. It's like there is a goal, but like I feel like it's a great hangout movie to a certain extent. And but when you're talking about like the Cranberries, I believe, the Gin Blossoms, you have Toad and the Wet Sprocket, Cracker. I mean, there's a
Better Than Ezra.
Better Than Ezra, yes. Like there's so much great music, and it's not that I'm going to be like, oh, I totally know that song, but the reason it's so important is because I will hear the song and then I'll be like, this is Empire Records.
Yeah.
I remember this from Empire Records. Yep.
That was the Gin Blossoms smash hit, like Till I Hear It From You,
Yeah.
I think.
Till I hear it
I love the Gin
from
Blossoms.
you.
I think
Same.
they're one of the better bands that
Oh,
came out of
yeah.
that era. That whole movie and soundtrack is the mid-90s to a fucking
Oh,
T.
God,
It
dude.
is just like the softer side of the 90s is what it was.
I
The
can't-
fashion and everything.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, dude. I can't wait till we get to cover it at some point. I really, really love that movie. I remember being shown that, like, when I was younger, and it shaped a lot of music, like, vibes for me. So,
Well,
yeah.
you're also going to have to hang out with Josh Miller when he comes into town,
Oh,
because I'm going to
damn
skip
it.
ahead. His number 3, he said easy for number 3, the Empire Records
Nice.
soundtrack. He said, how can you not have a great soundtrack that embodies the 90s better in a movie about a record store?
Yeah.
I love this movie. It still holds up pretty well. He said potential future review. He said it holds up well. The only thing that left me disappointed was the Renee Zellweger version of Sugar High isn't the version on the album, and I totally agree.
Yeah.
Like it's the original. It's like whoever actually wrote the song's version. But
Yeah.
I want to hear Renee do it.
I think I loved it the way they did that in the movie
Yes.
with her and everything. I thought it was very cool.
the Renee, the
The
Zags,
Zags, Zellwegs,
the Zellwegs,
the Zellwegs.
Renee's eggs.
Wait.
Wait, what? Well, my
that.
number 3 is Dumb and Dumber.
Yeah.
Put it in the butt crack.
Put a butt crack.
Yeah.
I truly believe that the soundtrack is what makes Dumb and Dumber a near fucking perfect movie.
I agree
It's
with
like it is a. I cannot wait to review this because I might give it a fucking 10. I think it's an incredible movie, and for some reason that soundtrack just like works so perfectly. The choices they made.
It's great.
It's also, I'm trying to buy it on vinyl, and apparently it's like the most expensive OST out there. There's like one copy available for like $500.
Oh my god.
And I thought about buying it drunk the other day. I
didn't
didn't,
do
but we need more Patreon members. And I will buy that. But here's a couple of the songs: Green Jelly, the Bear Song, Crash Test Dummies, the
Yes.
Ballad of Peter Pumpkinhead. We
Yeah.
talked about that in a Patreon episode. There's a song called Crash by the Primitives,
Yeah.
New Age Girl, Dead-Eye Dick.
Dead
New
Eye
age
Dick.
girl. Boy.
If You Don't Love Me, I'll Kill Myself by Pete Droge. Like this happy song that's like, if you don't love me, I'll kill
Yeah.
myself. And then there were songs that were not on the soundtrack that were in the movie that are so iconic, like by the Crash Test
Yeah,
Dummies,
yeah.
that scene with that wide pan shot.
Everything you made a mistake.
See, like that's such an iconic like
It is.
thing, and I don't like. You got the rights to this other Crash Test Dummy song. Why not that one?
Why not that one? There's a couple of Red Right Hand by Nick Cave and the Bad
You
Seeds.
bet.
Oh my
That is
gosh.
so perfect.
Is that not on the soundtrack?
It's not on the soundtrack,
Okay.
no.
They probably couldn't afford that, I guess.
The Rain, the Park, and Other Things by the Cowsills. That's the I love the flowers. Girl. It's like, I mean, how perfect is that in the scene? And also, Can We Still Be Friends by Todd Rundgren at the end. I mean, those are just like from start to finish. That movie is so perfect. And actually, I was learning how to play the drums when that movie came out, and so I would play along to that entire soundtrack.
You
from
needed
front.
a piccolo snare.
I didn't have one. I had whatever I could get. So I absolutely love the Dumb and Dumber soundtrack. That's one of my faves.
We'll have to come together. It'll probably take all 4 of us, but we'll have to come together and do Dead Eye Dick. I guess we're
Should
just
we
gonna
just-
have to.
I would.
We
love
could make
that.
we could make a music video with
Yeah.
with producer Jeremy and all of us,
Yep.
and we'll just do a cover.
We'll just do a cover
Confused
of it,
Breakfast?
and we'll reenact their music video.
Cool.
'Cause it
I
was
think
shot in Iowa.
It's shot in Iowa, yeah.
What?
Yeah, and it's like in a pumpkin patch.
Yeah.
It's super
Ooh,
weird.
pumpkin patch.
Yeah.
You know what? Scratch that. I
Yeah,
don't wanna
yeah,
do
you don't
it.
like that idea anymore. I don't know why. For some reason, when I first saw that movie, I didn't like the soundtrack. I thought it was like kind of ridiculous, and I don't know, like I didn't have a developed taste when I first watched that movie. So I'm like, why did I think that?
Yeah.
But now I watched that movie like maybe a week ago or something like that. I'm like, this is so good. Like even like the emotional
Yes.
beats, like the quote unquote emotional beats that you're like supposed to kind of feel bad for Harry and Lloyd. It works really well because of the
so
music
good.
they chose. It's so weird.
Yeah.
All right,
What do you got for 2, man?
I'm gonna go with I Am a Fan of Kiss.
Okay. Weird that you admitted that.
Yeah,
on
I
air.
am a fan of Kiss, Nights in Satan's Service. And this movie is pretty much just about Kiss, or at least a group of dudes trying to go to a concert
see where you're
to
going
see
here.
them in Detroit Rock City.
Oh.
I love Detroit Rock City so much as a comedy. We will be covering that.
Basically, our top 5 episodes
Yes.
are us talking about movies that
we
get
will be
covered.
covering.
Just note them. We will be covering them. Devil's Rejects coming right to you.
Yeah. Wait.
Coming right at you.
Another Funk 49 from the Joe Walsh.
Yeah. yeah.
20th Century Boy by T-Rex, Cat Scratch Fever
Yep.
by Ted Nugent, and then an abundance of Kiss songs.
I mean, you kind of have to have
obviously.
Kiss songs on there.
Love Gun is like I think it's the intro where they're actually the mom or the Nougat from Dumb and Dumber, the lady who like gets the dogs. That's her. She's the mom in Detroit Rock City, and so with that scene, it's like she's listening to the Carpenters, and then like
Yeah.
it skips to like a Kiss song, and she freaks out, and then the title sequence is Love Gun, and it just kind of shows like the vinyl going around and around. Jailbreak by Thin Lizzy, School Days by the Runaways. I mean, shout out loud, Kiss. It's just an amazing soundtrack. One of the songs I really, really like, especially in the movie, Surrender by Cheap Trick, is like when they finally get to Detroit, they're like crossing the bridge to get into Detroit. Surrender's playing, and they're like coming through the sunroof and everything. It's just like you with your buddies going on a road trip to see your favorite band.
Yeah.
It's just that song kind of just like really puts it into my brain. Like it's just such a good movie.
Yeah.
But
Hell yeah.
anyway, Detroit Rock City.
Detroit Rock City. I'll take it back to a director previously mentioned by Shaun,
Oh.
and I'm going to take my
Rob
number
Zombie?
two. No. House with House. No.
I'm glad you knew that.
That's pretty good.
Not bad, AJ. Pulp Fiction.
All right.
Pulp Fiction, I think is
Fuck.
in the pinnacle of Quentin Tarantino soundtracks. In all honesty,
Yeah.
and he does. They're all wonderful. Like, I'm not gonna sit here and say like, oh, I'm not gonna list out my Tarantino. But what I would say is I think this is like very much in the pinnacle of associating this music and the cutscenes and the juxtaposition of music against like a sad scene or an intense scene with almost happier music or vice versa. I just think it is freaking phenomenal. And it's the thing about, if you go and find the soundtrack for this, he inserts like, they insert like clips from the movie, like little voice clips of like characters and stuff to almost prep you for the next song. And I think that's so fucking genius.
Yeah.
So like, Honey Bunny, Pumpkin and Honey Bunny or whatever. And,
Yeah, you got
it. That it goes into Misener.
Yeah.
And it's and you're just like, yes, like Dick Dale, yes. There's so many good songs on here. Jungle Boogie, when it's like
It transitions from Misirlou to Jungle Boogie.
yeah, and you've got Let's Stay Together.
I love that song.
Dude, like it's so good. Son of a Preacher Man.
Yep.
Yeah, dude. I just think is it what's the one that they dance to?
Chuck Berry.
Chuck
Yeah,
Berry's that
that's so-
you never can tell.
Yep.
Such a great song.
So, like I say, I just love the way that he incorporated that music into that movie, and I think it's just a really, really well played out soundtrack you should listen to.
I won't really get the chance next week to talk about it because it's not really a part of that soundtrack, but the way he does that and it inserts like clips from his own movies of the movie soundtrack that's going on right now was my first introduction to Pulp Fiction. And I will say it next week, but Reservoir Dogs was the first Tarantino movie I saw, but I wasn't allowed to watch Pulp Fiction for a while because I wasn't old enough, I guess. I don't know why, but I was allowed to listen to the soundtrack.
Okay.
And so I would
Weird.
I would listen to all these lines and like picture what's kind of going on and like kind of create another movie in my head with the soundtrack as they're like doing scenes from the movie. And then I watched the movie and I'm like, oh, that's what that's from. It was just like a kind of a weird introduction to Tarantino for me, like that kind of way.
It is strange, but that's cool.
Yeah.
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 My number 2 is Animal House. I just watched this the other day. It was
Yeah,
already on
boy.
my list. I think it was like number 5, but then I just watched it last week, and I'm like, nope, that's going higher. That is an absolute. It happened in 1962 is when that took place, and that's just an unbelievable era of music. And I think the reason I love soundtracks so much is it's essentially a mixtape.
Oh, yeah.
It's like all these artists I'm going to mention here, like they have these really great songs, but if you buy the full album, like it's
not so
okay.
good.
It's not the same thing. But if I can take all these perfect songs and put them together, it makes it so much special. There's so many iconic movie moments that are stamped with these songs in this movie, like the shout scene with the Isley Brothers, which is Otis Day, of course.
Right.
What a Wonderful World, the Sam Cooke, the lunch line scene.
So good.
I was singing that song to my
All
little
the
daughter Willow the
time.
other day. I'm like, this is just awesome. Like history.
about school. I mean, it's perfect.
And then, and not to mention Shamalama Ding Dong by Otis Day and the Nights. In fact, if you go to listen to it online, it's this weird studio version. But I somehow, like back in the Napster days, found someone actually had the actual version from the movie. And it's just like, it's so fucking good.
And now you're the only one that has it.
Yeah, so if you want it, message me. I will legally send that to you.
Basically got like a Wu-Tang's like album or whatever.
Oh,
you're Martin Shkreli.
I was in college in 2000 with an Ethernet connection and Napster. I have everything. Twisting the Night Away, Tossing and Turning, Louie Louie. Even I Gave My Love a Cherry, the guy playing the guitar in the stairwell. Like, even that is fucking iconic and awesome.
I gave my
love a chicken that had no bone. I gave... and even like they even wrote
cover that.
Oh yeah, some guy named Stephen Bishop. I had never heard of that name. He wrote the theme song for Animal House.
Stephen Bishop.
Do you remember the song? It's at the very end of the movie. Animal House.
Oh
boom,
yeah, I'm thinking of Elvin
boom,
Bishop.
Boom, boom, boom. Even that is incredible. So I fucking love that movie, and I think the soundtrack's one of the most important pieces of that
100%.
movie for sure.
Yep.
Josh Miller's got a number 2. He said this one easily could have made number 1 for me anyways. Tron Legacy.
Wow.
Nice.
I feel this was a love letter Daft Punk wrote to not only the fans but themselves. Sure, there are plenty that don't like it for good reasons or they just want to be contrary. I love it. I listen to it often. That I would consider that maybe more of a score.
Honestly, yeah, but
not really.
It's like a Prince Purple Rain kind of thing. I count it.
I think that's sort of like Stranger Things to me. It's that it gives me those same vibes. Like I have the Stranger Things vinyl from season 1, and I will listen to it often because it's just those vibes of that of that nostalgia and that 80s and new wave, and
it's weird what listening to something like that will do to you.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, like it will just instantly kick you back into like I don't know, like you need to sit back and relax and be ready to experience this. You know what I mean? Like it's such a cool feling.
Well, it puts
you get
you
from that.
like what's great about like listening to soundtracks is it puts you like at like to the time that you watch the movie, or it can like kind of puts you into the movie itself and be like, oh, I remember these scenes. I remember when this was happening during this particular needle drop. You know, that's what's beautiful about them as well. So
love me some Daft Punk. Random Access Memories is an unbelievable album. If you've listened to that recently, just go back and do it. Daft Punk's fantastic.
100%.
We are down to number 1. Don't waste it, Shaun. What do you got, man? Oh, take that sip.
Sip it down.
Shaun's got a
I
sip.
mentioned Paul Thomas Anderson earlier. Jeremy and I were talking about him before we started recording. And he just saw Licorice Pizza, which I think is another great soundtrack. Has Paul McCartney on there and everything like that. But I think this might be his greatest soundtrack of all time in Boogie Nights.
Oh.
It is just Best of My Love by the Emotions. I think that's how the movie starts off. The Bennett.
Yes.
Bennett.
I think you're right.
It's just a funky ass like 70s soundtrack. Jungle Fever is here again. Brand New Key. Spill the Wine by Eric Burdon. Give It Up Part 1 by Marvin Gaye.
Yep.
Like it's got the feel of the 70s in a soundtrack, as well as like it being kind of like a like controversial subject of being like making a porno and everything like that. It's kind of got that feel to it. Like it mixes so well with that kind of story. But what I really want to talk about is Sister Christian and Jesse's Girl in this one particular scene. I think it's the greatest music movie moment of all time when they're going to buy drugs from Alfred Molina's character, and he's just kind of coked out crazy, and he's got this friend who's just lighting off fireworks the whole time, and like he's like their friend's got a gun, and like there's all these elements to it, and he's blaring music. He's blaring Jesse's Girl, right? Jesse's Girl. Yeah. Sorry. And then Sister Christian is in the same scene. It's just one of the best scenes ever, and it's only like driven by those songs.
Right.
Like obviously
If
the
you
visuals
change that up to a different song, it's not the same thing.
exactly. Obviously the visuals are a part of it, and like there's key moments where like someone's flashing a gun.
Right.
You just see that kind of moment, and then it obviously erupts into violence at the end of that scene. I think for that alone, it's got to be my number one. But also the ending to me, I talked about this on a Patreon, Living Thing by ELO, is the perfect ending to that movie to me, because it starts with showing Mark Wahlberg's fake cock in the mirror.
Right.
And I think that's like the violins come in with ELO, and then it like perfectly cuts to black and to Paul Thomas Anderson's name like as soon as his song goes in, and I think about that all of the time, and it's just everything to me. It's like I think about.
Are
it
you
all
sure
the time.
it's not the
I think about it
before
all the
the
time.
cut? Okay.
Yeah, it's when it goes black. All right,
It's when it,
and I'm comfortable with myself.
it
It's
goes
fine.
away.
It's like when Tarantino ends a movie like Reservoir Dogs, as
Yes,
we'll talk about next
100%.
week. It's like that needle drop and saying written and directed by is everything I live for. I'm just like, oh, that is so good, and that's what this movie does for me too. So Boogie Nights.
Number one, Boogie Nights for Shaun. What do you got number one, AJ?
I know you can say this about a lot of things, but I really truly do. Like putting everything aside, I really do think that this is probably the best like music soundtrack ever that could exist or has existed thus far. And it's Forrest Gump. I really think that Forrest Gump incorporates their music, and especially from the generations that he's going through. Like they go through decades in that movie, and they apply the music so smart. It's a massive soundtrack too. It is massive.
He's like 2 CDs.
Oh
right?
my gosh, dude! It's huge. Elvis Presley, Clarence Henry, Wilson Pickett, Creedence Clearwater Revival, Aretha Franklin, Bob Dylan, Beach Boys, the Mamas and the Papas, Buffalo Springfield, The Doors, Simon and Garfunkel, Jefferson Airplane, the Youngbloods, the Byrds, Harry Nilsson, Three Dog Night, Randy Newman, Leonard Skinner, Jackson Brown, Doobie Brothers, Gladys Knight and the
Jesus,
Pips,
man.
Fleetwood Mac. I'm talking everybody, dude. Bob Seger, Willie Nelson. It's insane. The list and the music that is on this, I can't imagine what that budget must have been like.
Yeah.
And like when there's very few more iconic scenes than listening to Fortunate Son while they're
Yes.
riding in that helicopter
Holy fuck.
into Vietnam.
Holy
It's what I think of when I hear that song. Is that scene?
It's like I don't know who hasn't. If you've seen that movie, I don't know why you wouldn't think of that. You know, it's somehow jarring and scary and like
and calming.
and calming
It's
all at
weird.
the same time
Oh,
because
John
of the
Fogerty. I love it.
expression on their faces and stuff, and like I don't know, it's very strange. And when he's saying goodbye to Jenny, like almost every time, like and when you turn
That stupid bitch.
I can't wait to
You know?
light her
Oh
up
my
Oh,
God.
that'll
when
be
we
so
when we do
fun.
that movie.
If we were most punchable face, we're talking about punchable faces in the soundtrack album. I'll punch a girl.
Oh, dude.
I'm joking. I'll just punch Jenny. That's it.
And then when you have it's when he's running
Yes.
across the country,
I'm glad you're bringing this up. Yeah.
there's a couple songs like Against the Wind, but then what is the song? It's
Jackson Brown.
Is it Jackson Brown?
Yep.
That
Running on empty.
That's right. Running on empty. When he's like kind of running up that like curve of the hill
Yep.
and stuff, and
Yep.
you're just when you're watching that and you're just watching him run in slow motion, like that is iconic.
Yeah.
And the scenery of where they pair it with and where they're at, and it's unreal. I could go on about that for probably at least another 37 minutes.
Cool.
We
So,
will be covering
will be covering that movie. I just think it's a great album, great soundtrack. If you need to incorporate some classic rock
Yep.
and music into your world, get that.
That's a
and
good-
put it on.
That's a good
Great
playlist
number
right
one.
there. My number one, this movie is a musical.
Oh,
I hate musicals,
Mm.
but I love this movie.
8 Mile.
Blues Brothers.
Okay.
I would call the Blues Brothers a musical.
Yeah.
And I'd call it the best musical in the history of the world. This movie is pure magic. It's official. Our newest executive producer, Bud Larsen,
Hey.
he chose this for an upcoming episode as his choice.
Oh,
so,
good
so,
job.
wow.
So we will be talking about blues. So I'm not gonna get into this very much because I have a lot to say about this movie. This movie is incredible. The musical performances of this movie are just out of this world. You've got Think by Aretha Franklin, Minnie the Moocher, that performance when they're on the stage and they're waiting for the Blues Brothers to show up. Everybody Needs Somebody to Love, Shake Your Tail Feather, Ray Charles, The Old Landmark, James Brown. Even the pre-recorded stuff like She Caught the Katy is one of my favorite songs in the world.
Yeah.
And just like I just love that sound. I own multiple Blues Brothers albums, and it's just one of the best things to put in if you just want to just sit back and go, that sound is so incredible.
It's so Chicago too.
I'm
glad it's shot in Chicago, as we'll talk about probably.
Yeah.
But it's so Chicago sounding.
Yeah, I'm not going to drop too much more because I have a lot to say about that movie, so we'll say it. But our boy Josh Miller, executive producer, his number one. If this isn't most people's number one, it better be in the top 3. Dazed and Confused.
Yeah.
I felt this was the first soundtrack that got new generations into older music.
100%.
I don't feel I need to go into detail. I assume this is on your list. Straight fire from beginning to end, the end. I'm glad that he said this because I still do feel when you're talking about a movie combining with music, I still think Dazed and Confused is probably one of, if not the best ever.
I think we could maybe say collectively on this show, as all 3 of us, it's probably the greatest soundtrack of all time, maybe.
I mean, the way it's incorporated again into that movie, we've always said this. We are broken records about it. The music is what makes the movie, and it's done so well.
Yeah.
So
it's what he was saying. It's beyond this point, and it was like when we talked about in the episode when it came out. The movie wasn't a success, but the soundtrack was.
Oh, God. Didn't he blow all of his budget pretty much on the songs because he knew how important those songs were for these scenes? It's incredible.
Wow.
Well, we hope you enjoyed the episode, everybody. Thanks for being here. Tune in next Wednesday for another great one. We are going to tackle Reservoir Dongs. Reservoir Dongs. Because I've been thinking about Mark Wahlberg. It says dongs on there.
It's my favorite.
Reservoir Dongs. It's like when you go swimming in a reservoir and you got your dong out.
Yeah.
After that, we got a Patreon
So many
selection.
times.
The Patreon crew picked this one by themselves. Who Framed Roger Rabbit?
Goodness.
What?
I'm really excited for this one because that's a deep dive into my childhood for sure.
Wow.
And if you're new to the podcast, go back this time last year. We talked about heavyweights. That was an awesome episode.
That was
a fun one.
I think that's a very underrated episode.
I agree.
Great summer
Go
movie.
listen to that.
Yeah, go back and check that one out. And before we go, we do have a voicemail. You can call us and leave us one if you want. 319-804-9596. Check it out.
Hey, Mike and the Confused Breakfast Gang.
Oh, hey.
This is Philip in Richmond, Virginia. I absolutely love the podcast. I listen to it every time I'm in the car. I just keep listening to new episodes. I just loved your Wayne's World episode. I just listened to that. And as I'm making this phone call, I'm sitting in my car listening to the Stand By Me episode. It's one of my absolutely favorite movies of all time, and just hearing you all talk about it with a modern eye is just fantastic. I absolutely love this podcast. Love what y'all do, and I just really appreciate it. And you all mean so much to me. So thank you very, very much.
Hell yeah, dude.
You mean a lot
Nice,
to
bro.
me.
Yeah, dude. You guys are pretty much the only reason we are able to do this. So when you call and say nice things, we're just pretty excited.
Yeah.
We got some crazy stuff on the horizon, so you better be glad you're on the train now.
That's
We
right.
can't even talk about it.
We can't even
it's
talk
so
about
crazy.
it. But we'll tell Jeremy when we stop recording.
Yeah.
Yeah. We can't wait. Thank you for calling in.
Thank you so much.
All right, thanks for listening, guys. Please stay in touch with us by following on all of our social media platforms at Confused Breakfast on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok, and Confused Be Fast on Twitter. Make sure to subscribe to our podcast and leave a review on the podcast platform of your choice right now.
Also, we have merch. You know you want to rep the Confused Breakfast in public. Mugs, stickers, shirts, all kinds of goodies. Go to confusedbreakfast.com for a direct link.
And don't forget about our voicemail number, 319-804-9596. Links to everything you could ever need from us are in the show notes or at confusedbreakfast.com. This includes a way to follow all of us individually in our personal projects that we want you to check out. Mission of the day, tell your friends about us. We'll see you next time. Goodbye.
Bye.